Hey everyone, I'm Rudi, and this is Rudisheim. So welcome back to the next episode of my German-inspired city. Today we're going to branch out a little and we're going to fix some of the inner city issues, especially when it comes to commercial zoning, some industry vibes, a little bit of noise pollution, and little things here and there to improve my mistakes of the very early stages of me playing Cities Skylines 2. So the first episode has been rather early on, so it's almost like 5 to 6 weeks ago, while the second episode and everything following is rather close to the release of the game. Now in today's episode you can expect me to fix a couple of those things, and we will have a real-time part at the end where I'm going to show you where we are at the moment and what you can expect from the next episodes, because this series is going to go into a completely different area than potentially you would expect it to, simply because I want to have a huge difference between my Westwood Airport series, which is not only the airport by the way, it's going to be branching out to be in a crazy big American city, while this project over here will have some secrets and some surprises in store for you, which I can already spoiler. They're really cool and showing you the potential of this game. Now, I also want to mention that I have listened to the feedback and slowed down the footage dramatically, hence I did leave out a little bit of stuff that may actually be boring, so from now on we can actually talk about what's going on screen to give you a bit of a better idea what is going. If you're not really the kind of speed build person, you can skip ahead to like 21-ish minutes where we're going to jump into the real-time part. Now, that said, let's talk about me zoning a couple more things. So first of all, and this is something rather important, I really wasn't happy with some of the areas in the city, simply because it simply did not look too European and especially not too German to me. So I was changing a couple of the roads to being less like blocky and less straight, and just made sure that they have a bit of a different vibe going on, kind of disabled the snapping for a bit, and also try to ensure that we have a bit of a nicer area here and there, together with the parks, especially this school over here, which is going to be changed a little bit in its appearance. And then we went on putting down some of the signature buildings that I have unlocked in order to make this kind of old town look next to the riverside a bit nicer. This area over here is causing some issues in the future of this series. I can already spoiler. The main idea behind this area was to be that this is like where the old town sits, and we will have to wait for the modding tool, I guess. The Paradox mod platform is going to bring us the needed change of visuals, I assume. So if you haven't gotten the news, yesterday they announced that with the launch of the tool, there will actually be a lot of new scenes. And while we are talking about this, I'm just going to quickly read out exactly which these are, because they are super nice. 8 new themes, which include Japan, UK, East Coast USA, West Coast USA, China, France, East Europe, and Germany. And I assume that Germany is especially going to be Bavaria, because whenever someone who's not German does say Germany, they mean Bavarian. It is an unwritten rule, but Bavarian includes kind of the Fachwerk, which is kind of a building style. Fachwerkhaus is kind of a building style that is very much connected to what many people, for whatever reason, but connect this to Central European Old Town building style. There are huge differences, but I don't want to go too much into detail because that would potentially annoy too many people. And there are various style differences, but I think for someone who's not too much into it, they are somewhat similar to each other. A lot of alpine influences to it as well. But then again, there's a huge difference. But anyhow, it's gonna look much better than what we have right now. Okay, but that aside, you can see I'm changing this area yet again because I haven't been happy with the first iteration. So I tried to make this area a bit more clean looking this time around, and making sure that the parks are a little bit more nice. And also I needed to ensure that we have a better connection for the commercials I wanted to fit in here. And I'm still quite happy with the school that was sitting on this side over here, simply because I found this school location quite neat, down by the riverside, as this is kind of a small town in the Eifel region of Germany. This could potentially be a little bit more idyllic, and there's where the school sits, and then the school wouldn't be necessarily on this big island here in the middle where like all the old town stuff goes. It really isn't the spot to go. And you can also see that I'm still branching out a little, changing a couple of things. This was basically where I wasn't happy with the approach a couple of seconds ago, so I just redid it. And I left it in just to show you that this is all not about building straightforward. Sometimes you're like, you know what, just change it again. And if simply there's no redo and undo button in the game, by the way, this is still one of the most required things in a game like that. I don't know, I got so used to it from the Planet games that it is a tool in a game I simply cannot live without. And I would love that every building game in the world is embedding an undo and redo function, simply because it makes the quality of life and the playing just so much better, but also it just improves dramatically how quick you can build. You know, that is definitely something very much needed. So yeah, just doing the same over again, as you can tell over here. It is a little bit of a pain because with the highway roads over here, this is going to be changed later on, don't you worry about that. But I wanted to change the way how the highway goes through the city. You have to imagine, as I said, this is like Eiffel inspired, and even though I had to struggle a little bit with the elevations in this build, realistically, the elevations are still too little. Like, if you go to the Eiffel, there would be way more elevations. And that is, spoiler ahead, something we are going to take care of in the future of this series. I have to challenge myself by becoming a lot more hilly in this series, and just making sure that everything is a little bit more nice looking when you go down to the ground. And I found some tricks how to deal better with inclines in this game and hills just in general. And also I have to admit that when I was starting the series, we didn't have the contour lines included in the build, so that's quite like a late one. I then continued with this series. I actually didn't plan to use that one, but I just found this so nice that I was, you know, then trying again to play the series. So that is how it got to be chosen to be the series. But yeah, this is the moment where we're starting to branch out from our big urban area. I can already tell you that this is the area over here which will change the most visually, simply because this industrial zone was more or less just there purely to fulfill the needs of an early stage city in Cities Skylines. But the look and feel of the industrial zone will change entirely, based on the fact that I want to make like a little harbor area, which is going to be the industrial zone. Something like that you do see quite often in regions like the Eifel, for example, that most of the industrial stuff is down by a river or whatever, because they require quite some water. And this is why they take the water from the river, and this is why these industrial zones most likely are located in these regions. Now, I do have to admit that I'm not entirely sure how I do like the industrial buildings. I have been pleased with them when I was first playing the game, and I even talked about this in my Gamescom review. But the more I played with the industrial zones, I am not the biggest fan of them. So in order to make sure that I use them to the best I can in this build over here, I will need to change my approach and try to build the region a bit more organic looking. And this is why I will put this along a river stream and will incorporate a little bit more of like a hillside next to it. That said, this is gonna be part of a future episode over here. This is nothing you can expect in today's episode, but I think it's a good point to just talk about this. So the entire upper side of this area will change dramatically. We will create like a very interesting hill in the center that is going to act like the central element where everything is focused on. Maybe we even put like a couple of these old ruins on top of it, like a tourist attraction where people would potentially do a hike to, you know. That's something I'm really looking forward to do. And now you can see I'm changing the highway yet again. And potentially this is not the last time we are changing it, simply because I wanted to make this, you know, European Eiffel feel going on, with some bridges going across and then it being a little bit sunken down to the ground. So we will also raise some of the areas around here later, just to make sure that the feeling of this area is just translated the best way possible in the game. It's been a little bit of a learning curve to really achieve the best I can with the tools given. I definitely have to admit that I feel a lot more comfortable than I have felt in Cities Skylines 1, which is down to the fact that I spent a lot of time now in the last couple of weeks, but also because, and this is something I kind of repeated so many times now, the tools are just so much more intuitive to be used. And yeah, I started cleaning up a lot, as you can see over here, preparing that area to become the first little town that is around this area. So maybe something I have to talk about for those of you who do not come from Central Europe or do not know Central Europe that well, and potentially most likely for the people from the US, they don't really know about that, I guess. But specifically these countries are German towns. They most likely have like a relatively dense urban area, which is, I don't want to say ugly, but it's grown through a long history of different decades, way longer than, for example, the US exists per its definition. So it started in the early medieval times, and then it grew over the Renaissance into like another time of the medieval, and then you've got the early modern, and then the First and Second World War, and then we've got like Germany coming back as like with our Wirtschaftswunder, as it's called, and then like there has been a huge change, and then the 70s 80s approach with like a very functional design, and it went through a lot of iterations, and hence the city contains so many different styles and so many different approaches that they don't really consist of a logical or nice looking city in that sense. You have nice areas of a city, most of them who stayed intact after the war. But then you also have other parts of the city which are like super functional, ugly, but they just existed and developed due to the fact that I had to develop quickly during the economy boom, and that was really form over or function over design, or so, function over form, I should say. And this is where all of these cities grew to these like massive centers of different types. And so at some point, this is what grew into, the urban center of these towns you'll find, especially in the Eifel or somewhere. But then you also have a lot of towns that developed around there, or actually those towns who have already been there. So some of which are winery-based towns, like where there's maybe one big winery or one big, let's say, for example, a farm or something like that, which was quite huge in the area because the farm was providing food or goods for like a huge area and a lot of customers, so that they had a lot of employees, and these employees started living obviously very close by the winery or by the farm or whatnot, and so this little village grew. And this is basically how the whole region develops. A lot of small towns connected to, as we call it in Germany, they are brought together then in a Gemeinde. That's how you call it. It's a community, basically. And this community also contains sometimes of some circles, as we call them in German, Kreise. It's basically just the naming of the region, where you have a couple of towns connected to a circle, and those circles all form a community, and these communities basically are part of this city area, and these city areas are named then by whatever. So Bad Rudisheim, for example, would be the name of this region formally, but it most likely describes the central area over here, which we can also totally call differently. Most of the times you have Bad Rudisheim, for example, could just be the center, and then you've got, for example, Bad Rudisheim Süd, Bad Rudisheim West, for example, just going by the different regions and destinations and whatever. But then again, you have totally different names from the towns around, and this is where you guys come in. You can also suggest like all of the names that you want to in the comments down below to make it as interactive as possible, just to tell me what exactly you would love them to be called. And yeah, just these kind of things make the whole thing a bit more personal, I guess, and individual. And this is the whole trivia. But you can see see development on the screen right now. A couple of these areas where previously I have had some very sloppy roads, I wanted to change now to make them look a lot better. I ended up with a version that I am quite okay with, but I will most likely change this yet again. I found some new tricks to manipulate the terrain and make this look even nicer. This approach over here, as you can see, is just using the terrain stamp tool to just make that all look a lot better. And then at some point I was like, I'm just gonna change this so that we have this kind of concrete foundation going on again. And yeah, a lot of things I did over here didn't really work out the way they should. But what I was also doing is I was also preparing the roads, obviously, for our public transport, because at this point it was where I needed to add the tram and also the bus to our area, because the traffic was starting to become very annoying, and I needed to create something that loosens the a strong connection to the car. Like, it was a very car-based city, which, to be honest, is like just super realistic in Germany, because in Germany everything is car-based. I think we are the most car-based country in the world. Actually, you know, the US is also pretty close to us, because the US is just freaking big. And this is why at some point there is also car required, because you don't even have like public transport everywhere, obviously. But in Germany, it's like, even though you technically wouldn't need it, everyone has a car and everyone goes by car. Like, yes, I know there are also people living in Germany who don't have a car and don't own a car, but I think if you would compare that in relation to if it's needed, really needed or required, in comparison to who really has a car, oh boy, it's a lot more a lot more car focused than it should be, and that it needs to be, but that's just the way it is. Yeah, as I said, at some point I also started to make sure that I added a lot of stations here and there, just making sure everything is connected. It was a bit of a struggle to really get this to grips, because as I said, I tried to form it as organically grown as possible, and that meant also that not everything is super logically connected. As I said, it's been growing over time, and so some of the things have been slapped in later on, I guess. This is most likely what happened, and this is also why some of the areas of the city are not that easy to connect. And honestly, doing this and really finding out that this was like a little issue here and there kind of confirmed that I was doing it right in terms of the layout, because, well, that's just how it is in Germany right now. It feels like a sloppy excuse for not doing it right, but for those of you who live in Germany or who have been here, they know exactly what I'm talking about. Public transport in Germany is not always good or logic. I mean, we're glad that we have it sometimes. And also, it's also quite like a little bit of a stretch to have such a tramway in a city like this anyways. Like, I'm really opting for like a bigger city in this region. Like, most of the areas that you would find here are not even big enough to have like an actual tram connection. But I thought, you know what, why not? Just let's imagine that this is one of these towns that got one, but we can't really expand it further than what you can see on screen right now. Maybe we are improving the overall tramway by adding a couple of connections within this zone, but we can't really enlarge this furthermore. Maybe we make one connection into the future industrial zone, but that's about it. The next big element we have to add in the next episode is going to be a train network, because trains in Germany at least are something that works quite well. In terms of, like, don't get me wrong, not in terms of timing and delays and blah, 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 but at least we have quite like a decent train network for basically connecting bigger parts of Germany, not in the rural areas, but like bigger cities with each other. That's something that works quite well. Well, and this over here is a little teaser for what's going to happen a lot more often in this series. You can tell that I'm using the terrain tool now a bit more focused to create a very nice little valley over here where there is the highway connecting over it, and this is looking so much more like it is really looking in the real German areas. I was trying to get a bridge over here, but it just doesn't work, which is fine, because most likely in these regions you don't really have a fancy bridge. It's just exactly that. It's just a highway connecting over. And don't mind the sloppy connection on top. This again will be changed. I'm just trying to make it look as good as possible here by, you know, fixing some of these with a new connection. And then we are doing a very, very typical German intersection, like a very typical highway connection that you will see so super often. It's like that one single most used connection type in Germany, where you just have that one bridge crossing the highway or going underneath the highway, and then you've got two different in and outgoing connectors. Like in this form we are doing this right now is very much exactly how it is, like these half circles on the one hand side, and then you've got the other one coming in. I was just trying to get this in the same shape as it is most of the times, as you can see over here. I could have just used the continuous curve to make it even better, but as I was trying to get this done really quickly with the tool given and not changing on the go, I really would love to know the hotkeys. I think there are some hotkeys, but I forgot which ones they were. But yeah, I was just enlarging then the area here as much as I could to stretch it out. As you can see, this is looking nice, and this is exactly how it is. And then obviously do not forget to slop down all the trees. It's gonna look so much better once it's all grown. really try to bring that bridge in, because this is something you would rather see. Like some of these nice connections in the Eiffel have like a nice little old bridge, and some of which have some really cool modern bridges nowadays. Like if you cross the Eiffel, sometimes smaller bridges over the yeah, especially with train connections, are made very modern now. Not sure what exactly. I think they needed to change some of these in the last couple of years because of them being super, old and have needed a replacement. And once they replaced them with some very modern ones, it needs some getting used to, but it looks really good once you get used to it. And then, yeah, obviously this is one of these smaller towns I was talking about earlier. These are the towns that usually would have grown over time closer to the main region, but then again, not too close. And this is one of the more closer ones, but there will be more in this region which have quite a stretch and will be connected via train network or the highway actually. So this is what we're doing over here. And luckily enough, people are actually going to settle over here, which is good. And this is going to grow us further into the future. But now let's have a look how it looks in game actually. So yeah, here we are the first time live in Bad Rudisheim. Well, actually not live, but in-game basically. And this is how it looks right now. Some of the things you may have not seen in the speed build is kind of this whole industrial zone I created here on the right-hand side. This is the basic blueprint for what will be the harbor area at some point. It is not really looking that nice as of now, but trust me, as soon as we've purchased a couple more of these land tiles over here, I'm going to make this look a lot nicer. It's going to be a bit of an expanded area of this part of the city. We've got some bridges crossing over here, so making this like a proper area. But then what I was just talking about a second ago in the time lapse is that this is the part which is going to change quite hefty. So this highway is going to go all the way up, and we are going to basically create like a plateau over here. So this is going to be where everything is going to be a bit higher. Actually, this is not even remotely where I'm going. I'm just going to try to be even higher in the center, and then we will have to try and make sure that our city goes nicely in this little hill-sized village, like really trying to branch out as much as possible to make it look good. And then the industrial zone is really going to go around the shoreline here. I think this is going to look a lot more organic. You can imagine that this is going to be a lot more like this, just growing a little bit confidence with the tool, so that this is basically what will guide the way where the industrial zones can go. So this is just really how I'm envisioning this to be. I will have to do this a bit more, off screen, because I have to be a bit more concentrated to make sure that we do also use the inclines. But look at that. This already looks pretty fun to me. Yeah, as I said, maybe we even make like a tunnel going through over here. I have not decided yet fully on that. Just can maybe the solution, I don't know, but we will definitely have some roads meander up here and having like actually a couple of living quarters over here. This will be looking pretty fancy. And then the next thing I'm going to change is that the landfill will go over here. This is gonna go this entire area, which is Optimfelde at the moment, I just quite like the name, is going to be the imaginary old industrial zone from like the economy boom, but has been renaturated with like a lot of nice shoreline parks and stuff like that. This is going to be a bit of trivia for the project, but also this entire industrial zone then has to move. So yeah, I'm not looking forward to that, but we have to do. And as you can see, some smaller little villages are starting to grow. This is the one we did at the end of our live stream. And what you will notice right now is we are still very negative in the trend of development, but that's not too much of an issue, because I'm still pushing forward with the milestones, and like with all the milestones you get enough money to actually go bigger. But as you can tell, it's not really that much getting for the next ones. So what I'm actually doing is I just looked into my financial situation right now, and you can see the taxes doing quite well. They start to grow again, but as you can see, the upkeep and stuff is just quite crazy. We still have a loan running, which doesn't really change too much, to be honest. It's just like a tiny part of it. But the stuff that's really important is that we do not really make any surplus in production. So at the moment, you can see we are not producing too much of timber. We do not produce too much of this one, and since the deficit, we have have to basically import all of that. And I have to reduce the import because that's what's gonna cause all the issues. And if we go all the way down over here, you can see we are starting to make machinery good, which is like a proper German thing to do. We also have beverages, like in this region that would be wine and stuff, I guess, and also makes this whole thing very, very, very realistic. But what we also do down here, as you can see, furniture is creating like a huge surplus in the moment. But what I really wanted to focus on is really getting into some really good production of services, software, and so on with the offices. And I'm also starting to get more into, where was that? The timber production, so to make some really good surplus over here. So therefore, because we were doing so much furniture, means also we have to buy so much of the stuff, I wanted to get rid of it. And this is why I started to have like a forest area over here, which as you can see over here is our lovely little area. At the moment we have 61 from 62 employees. That looks very good. May actually get them like a little parking lot here or so. And I will potentially put a second one down here, but I just needed to wait until the wildfires were gone. I think we got rid of all the wildfires finally. I think we got rid of it. Yeah, but whatever. So this is what is going to happen in the near future. And then in the far future, we're going to mostly, just to give you an idea, we're going to branch out till this region. This is where we get some smaller towns done. And obviously, we are going to branch down all the way to the upper area here, having a town here, maybe here somewhere, another alpine one maybe in this region. Really love how these areas are terraformed, by the way. Not sure what the problem with the map is for the outskirts, but yeah, whatever. This is looking, the city is looking very confident. I'm very confident about the city center, and as promised, I will terraform also the lower part over here to just basically get rid of the delta a little bit, because usually in Germany, and you are again just falling into my talk. What the heck? Yeah, but I think the biggest thing I have to change is that this is, like in Germany, this was technically just like a river, not a river delta. But I still like the map so much, so we will basically fix this. Really looking forward to that. So yeah, there's really not that much more to show. I will actually get the game running, so you can see a couple of things moving actually, and so to see that everything is moving quite nicely. We do have some issues with the traffic. Let's just quickly have a look at that. So you can see there is some heavy traffic over here, but it's really not that bad, you know. We have some issues. This one over here is something I have to fix. I already created a little fix over here, which does not really do too much. And then we also have the other huge issue in this area, which, to be honest, I can't really tell why. Oh, there's like has there been an accident? Oh no, they're using just one road. You know what? We can actually change this in a split second by just upgrading that to a 3-lane earlier on. Let's just add a 3-lane road right away, all the way to over here. I think we can just even go and keep that a 3-lane road. That is a huge pileup over here. There's another accident. I'm not sure if they do all the accidents now, but I think this should finally change at least some of which. Yeah, it's the current issue that the game has, that the cars are not changing lanes properly, and then they create this pileup, but it's just very German. It is just very, very German, and I just have to find a second solution to how to bring the people in here, because that's legit the only way to get here. So maybe I have to get them another way of getting in. As you can see, this highway isn't connected quite yet. Hopefully this is gonna change it by guiding the people that come from here to go all the way back to this area via this transit and not go all the way. At the moment, they are all the way going down here, and then they have to just go through all the city, back on this highway, and then go here. This is also what creates the whole issue. And they will also take the route down here and then take the highway all the way to this center. So it's not really nicely connected at this point in time. I really would need to connect these two first, and then hopefully the whole thing looks a lot better. So yeah, there's not really that much more to say. I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I certainly do enjoy creating this episode a lot, and these episodes. I'm just gonna go in this wonderful overview over here, because I just simply love how the area looks. Just zoom in a little. Oops, Come on, there was the autosave. Yeah, it's looking fantastic at this point. I really do like it. So hopefully you guys liked it too. If you did like it, please do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. This is the best way possible to show support, not only to me, but also to the algorithm to help me out, get this platform notified that my video is live. And yeah, this is also what we do it for, right? Yeah, have a good time, stay safe everyone, and make sure to stick with me for the next episodes. I can't wait to share more with you, and I will. So have a good one, stay safe, and goodbye.